It's no secret that being a project manager means that you're dealing with people. In order to have a successful project, I'm going to share with you in this video how to have a people-centered approach to your project management. What is people-centered approach? Let's look at it from the context of a people-centered approach workplace, because if we have an understanding of that, we can then apply that specifically to a people-centered project. A people-centered workplace allows for employees to be connected and work together in order to face challenges. And there's certain things that they focus on. Focus on continuous learning, care as much as employees as it does about customers, and intentionally, actively embeds these principles into the fabric of the organization. It really is about the culture and the way of working and knowing that your people are just as important as everything else in your organization, probably even more so. Now, how do we look at this from a context of our projects? Because the workplace is where we do our projects in, and so it's just one level below. So let me explain now how that works within a project, a people-centered project. Embracing growth and improvement within the project. Caring about the well-being of your team, encouraging new ideas and perspectives. When you put people first, you're always going to have better outcomes because people will be committed to what you're doing. So now let's take a look at some tips on how to bring a people-centered approach into your project. Okay, if you want to take it further with a people-centered approach, then you need to get this. And I'm going to share with you how you can get your hands on it a little bit later on in the video. In order to have a people-centered approach in your project, one of the first things you need to do is really explore the why. Now, why do we want to do that? Because people need to be motivated and have a very clear understanding as to what they are doing so they can understand their connectivity to the work that they're doing. And explaining the why behind your project, the justification, how it's linked to strategy, actually allows for your team members to know that they're not just task pushers, they're actually part of a bigger picture. They're part of a vision and a strategy, and actually what they're doing has big impact on what the organization is trying to achieve. It brings about a clearer sense of purpose as to why you are there and doing what you're doing. So really explain the why in your project and just don't assume that everybody knows it. Tune into what's happening around you. In order to really have a people-centered approach in your projects, you need to be extremely aware of your team and the other stakeholders that are around you involved in the project. Now, interestingly enough, this is not just about what they're doing and the tactics. I'm talking about really be tuned in, the inward tuned in. Like, how's your team doing? Is everyone doing well? Is anybody having a bad day? People aren't going to tell you this stuff, but this is gold because it's going to allow you to change your approach and look at things differently. Now, there is a way to do this, and that's through really honing in and tuning into your emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? Let me share with you the definition. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand oneself and others. A person is emotionally intelligent when they demonstrate the capacity to identify their own emotions, regulate them, and make responsible choices. As a project manager, you need to have high emotional intelligence. You have to, in advance of anything really occurring in a negative way, you got to pick up on those cues so you can help address things before they become a big problem, impacting your team and impacting the people-centered approach that you want to take on your projects. Now, before we get on to the rest of the tips, not only do I have this amazing free content for you on YouTube, I also have this. If you want to go to the next step with me and you want to learn more at a premium level, you can enroll in Slay Project Management. It's the exact process I use for all my clients, including all the tools you'll need. I've put the link in the description box below. Encourage different perspectives. All right, to be a people-centered project and really to take that into your approach, it is not your way or the highway. You really want to encourage different perspectives. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, it's very respectful, okay? When you're people-centered, you are really looking at the people around you and you respecting what they have to say, not only because they're smart people, they're on your team, they got hired for a reason, they're subject matter experts, they have expertise, they have value into what they're going to say, so you just don't want to shut that down. And so understanding different perspectives becomes really important, particularly when you have deadlines and it's really easy to just want to get things done and not deal with other perspectives because it may slow you down. You got to take a break. You got to take that into account, because if you're going to be people-centered in your approach and projects, you'll be amazed that sometimes it feels like being people-centered, I know, may feel like it's taking longer to get things done, but in actuality, it brings about better quality, brings about better value, because you're really thinking things through. So take the time to really understand others' perspective, encourage it, but also put some parameters around it too. You're not looking to have people run away with agendas and things of that nature. People need to come prepared. So open that up, encourage that within your teams, and ensure that you have some structure around it too by coming into meetings with set agendas and challenging people yourself. Hey guys, come up with some different ideas. We really have to get the best idea out there. And that's another way you can go about that too. Don't plan in isolation. It is really easy in projects in the beginning because you're kind of setting things up. You're looking at the full picture, that macro view, so you have a really good understanding of what's happening. And sometimes you just want to get it done, so you start planning. You need to bring your team in on the planning. Don't plan in isolation because you will forget stuff. I'm sorry. If that was the case, that one person could do the job and do it perfectly, then we wouldn't have project teams. One person can do it all, but that's not the case. So take into account that you do not plan in isolation. So what are some of the things that you can do to be more people-centric regarding this? Well, at your kickoff meeting, you need to put together a baseline plan and then have exercises around that with your team. In my Slay program, my Slayers know all about that because I actually have exercises for them all set up so they can actually execute those types of activities in their kickoff meetings. You also want to ensure that when you're doing mitigation planning or contingency planning because a risk came up, again, it's really easy when you're under a deadline or you're trying to deal with a crisis to just come up with the solution yourself. Don't. If you're people-centered, you got to work with your people because, again, they have a lot of wealth of information. So just don't plan in isolation. You can baseline things in isolation, but always validate it with them to finalize it. Deal with conflict. A people-centered project will not allow conflict to just continue or have it happen in the background. Why? Because conflict sets up people to go against each other. It actually creates negative impact. So if you're going to be a people-centered project, you need to address conflict when it comes up, and you have to be aware of the conflict, even the hidden conflict, through emotional intelligence. So understanding the conflict so that you can nip it in the bud. A great technique that I do is in the beginning of my projects is we talk about team dynamics, and part of team dynamics is forming, storming, norming, performing. And I actually have a video on that you can take a look. Go to the search bar, Adriana Girdler, team dynamics. But what's really important when I kick this off and I set my expectation is I go, look guys, we will have conflict. If you take a look at this model, storming will always happen. How will we deal with it? We need to address that particular issue. We need to address the elephant in the room, and I get their feedback. So when it does come to play, I bring about their suggested ideas, and it allows for us to address things. I also encourage them for them to come up and to identify if there's any issues that I maybe for some reason am not picking up on. So this is what's really important, because a people-centered project just has everyone working together. And when you're working together, it really allows for you to get really good bonding with your team, to really move things forward in a faster way than you probably would not if you were not centered around your team. Emphasize continuous improvement. Well, we know with a people-centered workplace, it is about continuous improvement. It's giving the people the skill set in order to get better and learn more things. And it's the same thing within projects. So it's understanding, are you learning from what you've done? Are you giving people the skill sets they need to be successful in executing your project? So continuous improvement is not a singular thing that we just do for ourselves. We look at it in the context of the project as well. Is there anything that my team needs to be aware of? Can we improve upon what we did before? So really looking at it from a perspective of the project as well as personally our own skill sets. So really having that, you can learn always, whenever, forever. And if you have that mentality, it really opens you up to being more people-centered, because in order to improve, you recognize that you don't know everything. And when you don't know everything, what do? You start reaching out to the people around you so you can make sure you get the best answer. Okay, remember I told you about this? Well, you can get this on tips on how to make sure your projects are successful by going to the link under this video. Make sure you watch this next video on how to hone in your project management skills step by step in relationship to what's going on with AI. On that note, if you could like this video, subscribe to this channel, put a comment down. I'd love to hear from you. Until the next time, see you later.